okay. If you would
Yes, we
be
can.
kind enough, and thanks for an amazing introduction on a Saturday afternoon or morning, wherever everyone is joining us from. I hope, can everyone see my screen then?
Yes, we can.
Okay, brilliant. I have two screens showing, so technically, for some strange reason, I can't monitor the chat. I don't know why. So if you be kind enough, Darren, to monitor the chat for me, that would be fantastic.
No
As I
problem.
mentioned earlier, technology has a way of making sure that some days are challenging and not. Anyway, hi everyone. I'm Amina Akugri. If you're probably wondering where I'm from, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and to Ghanaian parents. So I moved to Ghana when I was much, much, much younger, and I haven't been to Nigeria ever since then. But I do have a lot of I do have cousins who are Nigerians, and I have friends as well who are Nigerians. I eat a lot of Nigerian food. That's no discrimination on anyone. But if you are not Nigerian or Ghanaian, no matter where you are from, I'm still open to having conversation and discussion with you. So my background has been in accounting. So it's quite interesting that we are having our topic on embracing continuous growth, because then it just tells you that no matter what your background is, tech can still be for you if you want it. So let's dive into it. Just before we go into our next slide, I thought it would be interesting to pick your brain on a few things. So, icebreakers. For most of you who have been in the UK for some time, you know that usually when this is a good way to like get people to ease up and then have fun. So you can see there is an animal on the screen, right? Does anyone know what this is? If you can pop a few things in the chat for me, and Darren can tell me what's happening. Anyone?
All right, so people are dropping some comments in the chat, but since you can't see that, let me just.
I don't know why I can't see this. I don't like the idea that I can't see what's happening in
Yeah,
the
some people are saying a butterfly, a moth, a monarch butterfly. Wow, a dragonfly.
dragonfly.
Well,
Okay.
80% of people are saying a butterfly. Yes.
Does
So
anyone know what debugging is? Because I want to believe that there are a few people in tech in the chat. So let me give them a few seconds to show off their skills. Does anyone know what debugging is? And do you know the history about where it came from? I feel like someone has said yes. About 3 people or 4 people have said yes.
oh, just one person said sure, and that's Daniel.
Daniel. Okay. So many years ago, a bug was actually found in a computer. And this was where engineers decided to bring the name debugging from. So if you don't know what debugging is, um it's usually when codes have issues. I want to try and stay non-technical as much as I can. So usually when there are errors with codes that engineers write and then they are trying to fix it, it's called debugging. So that actually came from finding a live bug in a computer. So at least you've learned something today about debugging as you transition into tech. For those who will be going into the technicalities of tech, then oh, that was quick. Can anyone guess when the first SMS was sent? If you are in Lincoln or you're in UK, you get this right. Hot chocolate or coffee on me. Any answers?
All right, someone says 1992.
Who is that person? They saw something quicker than I did. Uh-huh.
Maybe they Google search. That's easy.
Okay. Who again?
No one else has guessed.
3, 2, 1, and yes. So the first SMS was actually sent in 1992, and it was Christmas message. So just thinking back now, when we are trying to engage in a conversation about embracing continuous growth, we all at a point in time were sending text messages like SMS. Then all of a sudden we moved to WhatsApp, you know, and now SMS is most likely not a thin thing. When you wake up every day, you don't necessarily have to send someone a text. What do? You send them WhatsApp. Literally, almost everyone uses WhatsApp. So I thought that was quite interesting, to just look at how we've evolved over time and how people like engineers and all that always are working nonstop to ensure that we are constantly growing and evolving. So, oh, this keeps beating my imagination. What would you call this image? A bike, a tricycle, because it has three wheels. Any answers? Any volunteers?
Okay, some people are saying a cart.
A cart.
Stella says this is one of the first cars. Someone says a tricycle.
Mm-hmm.
Stella says Ford, I guess.
Well, you'll be surprised to know that this was the first automobile built by a German engineer in 1886, Carl Benz. Can you imagine that this was like what was used for mobility? And just think about how we have moved from there to where we are now. Now we have cars that have wide screens and that like they do a lot of things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed icebreakers. So just taking you through embracing continuous learning. I would share a story about myself. I think that usually is interesting for people to be able to continue with connect with stories. So I started off studying accounting, HND, and then after that I did accounting and finance. And along the way, so I worked in an insurance company before. I worked as an accounts officer, did a bit of finance audit here and there. Then I came to the UK about 5 years ago, studied my master's in accounting and finance, and I worked as a lead engagement officer. That was one of the most challenging and interesting roles that I've had before because it was something completely new and different where you did everything. So I was working in an organization where we had different companies that you have to either be like a non-executive director, you have to be on the board of trustees. So you literally know almost everything that is happening within the organization. So from there, I started getting interested in a lot of things. So talk about products, users, data, because a lot of things that we did was heavily reliant on student data, the analysis of data. And also, as someone who studied accounting and finance, it just makes sense that you are dealing with a lot of data. But if you are working in accounting and finance and you can't really use data properly, then it means that there is a block in the way you work. So I started thinking about what can I do to keep up with the trends, you know? So along the line, started learning on Excel, as Yomi mentioned earlier on in his talk. The way to learn is not always just about, just doing a course and then moving on. You have to practicalize what you learn. If you don't practicalize it and you just go online and read, that's it. It's going to leave you. So I started trying to find things that I could do that would ensure that whatever I'm learning, I can put it to practice. So along the line, I did an online course in data analysis. But what I did was then I became friends with someone who made sure that we worked on projects together. So we find problems, we solve those problems. And by doing that, whatever skill that I was learning or whatever challenge that I was having, ensure that I knew what I was doing. Again, the reason why I used icebreakers to give our talk was because for continuous growth, you need to always make sure that you are staying on top of the trends that are currently happening. So um, think about a mobile phone. What was the first iPhone? Was it, can anyone guess what the first iPhone was? Was it iPhone 1, iPhone 2, and where we are now? We are currently at iPhone 15. So for the people that work in Apple, it is their job to ensure that they are constantly growing, and it means that they are constantly finding a new way of doing things. So you as a person, you want to ask yourself, if you join a company today, right, as as an entry data analyst, and you're thinking, oh, as a data analyst, how can I get to become my manager or my manager's manager? Your manager or your manager's manager might necessarily be someone who has years of experience or has, and the years of experience doesn't necessarily mean in data analysis. It could be people skills, right? It could be learning how to manage a team. It could be anything. And those are things that you have to watch, you have to learn, you have to read, you have to connect with people and to understand, which is why we've moved to staying relevant. For you to be able to embrace continuous learning, you need to you need to do these things, right? You need to be able to, like, I know not everyone likes reading. I used to like reading myself, but after a period of time, it just left me, but I'm going back. So even if you can't read a book, now we have seen people writing a lot of newsletters and articles and blogs. These sometimes are about 2 to 5 to 7 minutes. So this is something that you can sign up to, find interesting topics that you know can engage you and read. And by doing this, you are able to know what is happening. You could join a book club. I don't know how that might be uncommon in Nigeria or Ghana or wherever you're joining from, but in the UK, there are so many book clubs that you can find. It could even be the company that you are working on. This is a good way to understand what's happening, because the only way to know and then to ensure that you are staying relevant is by understanding what's happening around you. And then I know that you've probably seen this over and over again, online courses. So for those of you who are here and are students, if you didn't know this, your student email address gives you access to like LinkedIn Learning. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. By that, you means you're accessing learning on LinkedIn for free that you don't have to pay for. Some of you might be familiar with the likes of Coursera and all the Google Learning. Sometimes if you're a student, you get all those discounts. Yes, you can take some of those courses to stay relevant. So let's branch into the world of designers. I think that when we started the whole idea of design, we started way back from like graphic designers used to be the main thing. Now we are looking at UI, UX. It tells you how design has gone from not just focusing on the graphic, but focusing on the person who is going to be the user and how they are going to engage and interact with what they are seeing. So the only way you can upskill or keep yourself updated is to make sure that you're in a constant mode of learning and updating your knowledge. Teach others, right? As cheesy as it sounds, if you teach, you remember, right? If you teach someone something, it's like teaching someone how to fry egg. If you know how to fry egg, and you teach someone how to fry egg. And I'm sure some of you are saying, "Oh, she's saying egg. She's Ghanaian because Ghanaians we like eggs all the time." But teach people, and if you teach people, it's a good way to test your understanding of what you are teaching. It tests your knowledge. You're like, "Oh wow, look at me. I was struggling to learn this thing, but now I've been able to teach someone. That was easy." So think about people that can benefit from that. And if you're in UK is very big on volunteering. So you could sign up to volunteering opportunities and you can use that to be able to teach and contribute to other people's development skills. That puts you in a good place of constant learning as well, because you would always want the people that you are supporting to come back and then to come to you. And then when they come to you, you always have something to give them. I know for most of the technical people here or people thinking about going to technical roles, a good place to engage would be open source on GitHub. where people have projects and looking for other people to be able to partner and work with. So you might find something interesting there, and you can definitely make the use of that. Experiments with side projects. I mentioned this earlier about how I found a body and I use that body to constantly keep ourselves occupied, like maybe occasionally meet up on the weekend. Oh, what's trending? What's happening here? Let's test this. Let's do this. I, for one, would make sure that I do this bit of the research. He does this, and then he was very brilliant. You know, when you meet people who are brilliant, tap into their knowledge and their skill. There's nothing wrong with that. If you feel that that person is going to be able to support you, grab that opportunity and don't let it go, because there's something in it for you. And if you are brilliant yourself as well, ensure that you are able to like share that sort of knowledge. I see people doing YouTube videos and all that, and Instagram, and sharing tips and knowledge of things that they know, which is very good, because then that keeps you in a learning mode. I can't emphasize how much this is such a big deal. Attending conferences and seminars. This is a really good way to understand industry trends. So if you are probably thinking of going into AI, you want to be an AI engineer, or you want to do something in marketing, look for conferences that relate to that. You want to be a software engineer, you want to know what are the new things happening. Look for conferences and seminars that relate to that. And then you can network with people and understand what's happening. This could be a good way to test your appetite. Would I want to, like, talk, even if possible, if given the opportunity? And then you can meet people who might end up becoming like your mentor, or having a community that you can be a part of. Again, we've all seen how important communities are. Yomi has said about how he's built his community of audiences in transition school, and then people are learning and sharing a lot from there. So if there are communities like if there are communities that you are interested in terms of the industry that you'd want to get into or remain in, these are the things you need to be doing. Join them. People share ideas, people share knowledge, people tell you what's happening, so you are able to stay on top of that. And as well, staying relevant doesn't necessarily mean just within your industry. It's very, you need to be curious, right? You want to know what's happening in the other person's industry. So I have my friend and housemate works in hospitality, and she works as an instructional designer. I've never heard of instructional design before, right? So I became curious. I'm like, what does instructional design mean? Does anyone know what it means in the chat? Let me just test everyone to see if you are still with me. Any yeses or nos, so I can tell you what instructional design is. Is everyone with me?
Okay,
Or
love knows.
a lot of
Yeah.
no's? Okay, so you see,
Yeah, okay. One person says yes.
who said yes?
Eze Chukwuamezi, he
Okay, so
knows.
Chukwa, can
Okay,
you
only one
type?
person. A lot of people say.
Okay, so Chukwa, since you know what it means, type a brief explanation of what instructional designers do in the chat, and I would
Some
speak.
people are saying training course design or training materials.
Good,
Then
brilliant.
Chukuma says for learning and development, training department.
Exactly. So I don't need to explain, but I didn't know what that was. I never heard of it before. So when I found out that this was someone who was my friend who does this, what I did was I had to monitor what they do and say, oh, so you do this. What are like some of the what are some of the tools you use? How do you study to do this? How do you become this person? Can you transition to become this person? How do you stay relevant? So even in as much as I'm not an instructional designer, now I know what instructional designers do, right? Now I know what they need to do to upskill. Now I'm thinking maybe I'm launching a product, right? I can now start thinking, will I need an instructional designer to be able to build something for me? Because I have decided to keep myself, I've decided to stay relevant, not just in my field, but in other fields. So again, think about it this way, that if you are embracing continuous growth, don't focus only in your circle. Think about other areas, because you just might be able to move from where you are to another area and be able to do something significant there. So thanks for all of you who know what instructional designers do and put that in the chat. Um coming just thinking back about your thinking, right? You don't want to, when you sit in your when you're sitting down and you think about starting a new job, you want to start asking yourself, where do I want to see myself in 5 years, right? Do I want to get promoted? Do I want to work in one industry and one industry alone? Do I want to I want to become a manager, right? So when you start thinking about all these things and where you want to be in the next 5 years, it gives you an idea of what you need to start doing, right? So it doesn't hurt you when you're embracing your continuous learning, because you know that this is where you want to put yourself. And again, no pressure. People work differently. You have people who don't want to be managers, right? They don't want to manage a team, they just want to do their job and go. You have people who don't like talking to a lot of people in a team. I don't want to pick on on software and data engineers and all that. I know some people in the technical role just enjoy sitting and building codes and not talking to a lot of people, but it is fine. Again, it depends on what you want and how you want to get there. So find interesting books, right? It might not necessarily be on your in your field of study, but it's about things that would help you to get to where you want to be. Do you want to be a leader? If you want to be a leader, it means you need to start learning how to manage a team. So you could find books on leadership and start learning about it. Social media is such a big deal now. Social media now, you can find people on Twitter, or X. Let me just say the right thing before Elon comes for me. You can follow people on LinkedIn as well. Like you can follow people on Instagram and then understand the different perspectives of the way people do things. But again, for the professional context of everything, LinkedIn, if you don't have an account now, please sign and create one now. You don't need to go and do a professional headshot. Get us a nice picture there in the meantime, and later we can talk about professional headshot, and start searching for people and start connecting with them. That way you start thinking, you're like, the way you think about where you want to be starts falling in place, because you start seeing the people that you want to be like in the future. Talk to people from different backgrounds. Yomi said this earlier, right? And I was like, yeah, spot on. Don't stay comfortable with the people that you are used to, because your thinking is going to be the same. You want to be able to span out your thinking across different diverse backgrounds. So you think differently, you understand the way other people do things, and you can incorporate that in your way of thinking. I know most people don't say this a lot, but travel is important. Traveling to experience new culture, it helps. And yeah, traveling might be expensive, but it is relative. If you live in UK, right? What stops you from moving from one city to the other to even go and understand whether the context of that country is the same or not? You know, if you eat rice and stew every day, sometimes it's okay not to eat rice and stew, and then try something else because you get tired of eating rice and stew. So if you have the opportunity to be able to travel as well, please, you can do that, because then it makes you see things differently. Then now that you have been thinking about how you would stay relevant and expand your thinking, you need to have a plan. There is no way you can't have a plan. I know that you hear about planning all the time and you think that, oh, planning again, but planning is really, really important in everything that you do. So you start off by identifying your goals, right? What do you want? What would you get out of it? What would you be able to do with your goals when you achieve them? So by sitting down, get a notepad. If you are the type that likes to write, if you don't like to write and you want to just make some notes on your phone, do that as well. Anything that works for you is perfect and is brilliant. So start thinking about your goals. Where do you want to be? How do you get there? And what you would get out of it, right? And maybe it could be polishing your skills as well. Make a note of that. What kind of skills do you have at the moment, right? Is it just skills? Is it just entry level skills? Do you want to move to the next step? Or is it skills where you are lacking confidence in doing certain things? It could be anything. You need to assess yourself and know where you are at now and what can be done to help. But because if you identify the issues, like the skill set that you have now, then you would know what is missing. So if you know what is missing, it's easier for you to tell people with confidence that this is missing and I need help. Or I am not confident when I'm in a meeting, or I'm afraid to speak to people in public. So then you can start from somewhere. Resources are everywhere now. Thankfully, we all know how to use Google. If you don't know how to use Google, please drop a message in the chat, and I'm sure we will be all more than happy to help you. Find resources, learning materials. There are free learning materials everywhere, and they are ones that you have to pay for. If you can afford to pay for those learning materials, let's start from the free one and let's see where it takes us to. I mentioned blogs as well, like so many blog writers all over, newsletters, even like the free resources you can get if you are a university student as well is there. Take advantage of resources. If you need help finding resources, stick to I'm sure transition school, for instance, would have like a section of that where you can find some of this is engage, connect. And again, when you are in a community of people that share the same goals as you do, you would have access to these resources. Then create a schedule of your learning activities. You don't want to be biting things left, right, center, right? You don't want to start something today, you leave it halfway, you pick another thing tomorrow because people have said, oh, this skills is in demand, you get more money. Like, I mean, we see that all the time online. Oh, if you do business analysis, you get a job. If you do data, think when you are able to identify your goal and assess your skill, then when you are making that schedule of learning activities, you are able to determine where to start and where to go next. So you don't jump on everything that is online. You make sure you know what you are doing and you stick to it, right? Then the last bit is track your progress. How do you know you are doing a good job? I believe in reflection, which is such an important thing. Reflection would be something you could do at the end of a month to sit down and then breathe. What did I do this month? I learned this and I learned that. And from learning this and this, I know I can do this now. So let's say you want to do a job in data analysis. You have to learn how to use Excel. You have to learn how to use SQL. You have to learn how to use Power BI or Tableau. So you decide that in the first 2 months, your main focus is going to be Excel. In the next 2 months, your main focus is going to be SQL. And in the third month, in the next stage is going to be Power BI. So as you progress, because you've made a schedule, you can be able to know the things that you've achieved and that how you did what to achieve them. That way, you don't feel like you are just stuck and doing something and can't have an idea of what you are doing. So very, very important to track progress to see how things are going well for you. And that brings us to the end of embracing continuous growth. And and that brings us to the end of embracing continuous learning for growth in a tech career. Any questions?